So the next question is, how do we manage fear when on the crystals DMT? And what I'll say about this, because I'm really cautious these days about recommending to a person that they should go and do something, because you can't generalize about this stuff. You have no clue of who you're talking to and to what extent they're going to take what you're saying. So with this being said, I think we can remove the DMT component and just say, well, how does one manage fear? Okay. And fear is only managed when you come into balance and not have such a crazy polarized idea of what's happening in the reality. And this actually takes some exploration in self internally, exploration with self externally, and seeing all as self. Right. And when I say exploration of self internally, there are many things about what we do, even though they're in our own little measure. It may not be as great as when a mass of people do it. But in our own measure, we do things that we're oftentimes afraid of in the society. I mean, even let's take killing. You may run into a few bugs with your car, so you have done some killing. But of course, you may have a fear of a killer until you realize that, hey, I'm actually doing in my own proportion the same thing that I'm afraid of. And then you start exploring that road and seeing where that road takes you. And this begins to decrease the amount of fear. Likewise, understanding, as we call it, just becoming more aware about the real purpose of death, and that's pretty fictitious, the whole death thing. It is a point where the circle is now completing its cycle and restarting again. So if we see even the most greatest thing that puts fear into most people, which is death, even though I believe pain is a bit more of what people try to associate with the fear of death. But because death is that point where people feel like that's where their fear comes from, it's about conquering death. Actually coming to the awareness, not just mentally, not just spiritually, and also physically, but on all levels, coming to this awareness of the purpose of death and what really happens after that phase, which is the transmutation. And that truly, when you really sit down on this and you really think about it, you'll actually find that people are more afraid of everlasting life, immortality, than they are of something like death. Death means that if I get into a bind and it stops working out and I need to reboot, and I want to start over again, I created this thing that's pretty much impossible for a mortal being called death, where I can really stop the cycle and start a new cycle. Versus if you just sat in on, I'm going to be here forever, this is going to happen forever, that actually is going to be more of what people are concerned about. So it's really about flipping some of these concepts on their head, isolating what you feel like is bringing the most fear into your space, and then digging deep into that fear and seeing where it's present with you, but also see where it's resonant with you in order to nullify its overall hold on you. And this is very simple and it tends to why it works, not necessarily doing it, but why it works. It works because two frequencies always cancel out each other. So you start having this quote unquote frequency gun that allows you to fire into things that you feel like are the nemesis of your path and just cancel it out so that you can move forward from there. So that's the advice that I would give on just managing fear. Because of course, if then now you're in a DMT experience and you haven't managed this completely and now you go full throttle, you're just going to go full throttle into one of your polarizations. So whatever is the darkest, most unexplored, evilest thing is more than likely what you're going to start focusing on and intensifying in the amplification. Also, meditation is the technique and is the key to begin to work through these spaces, because you can have a DMT-like experience in the meditation, whether that is a fear-based experience or not. But it gives you the power of walking through the front door, meaning that you can directly deal with and encounter it rather than walking through the back door, which we say is what substances do. We're not saying one's good or bad, but when you take substances, you're walking through the back door of yourself. So you're kind of sneaking in. You're getting into that stage and you've utilized something to take you into the stage. I'm not saying you should not do this, but the other one where you use your breath, you walk into the front door, so you don't actually feel like a film between you and the experience. It's very dynamic. It's even much more dynamic, I believe, personally, than substances if you can accomplish this with breath. And this is because with substances, you can always recall, well, I took this substance and that's why I'm experiencing this. That's the film, right? So you're still sitting kind of behind something as you're experiencing things. And to me, this can kind of create sometimes more fear in a situation because you feel like that you're being blocked from this huge monster and you're glad that this film is actually there, this cage is actually there, versus when you walk through the front door, it's like you're kicking down the door to your own kingdom and you're clearing things out and you're saying, hey, this is my stuff. I'm here. I'm the master of this. I'm the Lord of my own life. I'm the ruler of the center. I'm the great arbitrator. Get off the throne. Get down back to the coccyx or into the feet or wherever you belong, and which is where fear comes from, right? And then you actually begin to become the ruler of your consciousness. So that's what I'll end on that.